Hey, it's Steve. I'm going to talk a little bit about coastal change and our efforts to protect our shorelines and our coastline. As Floridians, we spend a great deal of time and energy on an effort to maintain the status quo of our beaches. There's a lot of challenges in that endeavor. Our current solution in most cases is called renourishment, and that's where sand is brought in to rebuild beaches as they erode. In most cases, this is done with a barge offshore that pumps in huge volumes of sand that's pushed around by excavators to rebuild and restore the existing shoreline. In some cases, though, there are unique challenges to that typical approach. And here in Satellite Beach is one of those places where that's a difficult endeavor. And it's made difficult because of this seemingly innocuous thing. This rock is actually a piece of worm rock. Sibillary worms have established a pretty decent reef system here in Satellite, just offshore, in fairly shallow water. They have latched on to outcrops of limestone or coquina that have been exposed. They build tubes of sediment and their excretions that over time build a durable, hard, reef-like rock that creates a really great nursery, really great habitat for a lot of different species. For that reason, these reefs and the worm rock are protected. And when it comes to beach renourishment, that poses a lot of additional challenges. Here in Satellite, instead of pumping it from offshore, we have literally thousands of truckloads of sand or dirt brought in from off-site, hundreds of miles away in some cases, expending thousands of tons of fossil fuels in the effort, millions and millions of dollars to rebuild the dune line, which ultimately is washed out within a season or two through normal tidal action, through storm events. It washes away and it's rebuilt. So why do we, as Floridians, why would we go through so much effort to do this and not just let it go? And that really goes to the private property rights and all of the billions and billions of dollars of infrastructure and privately owned real estate that we have on our coastlines. Private property owners have a right to protect their investment. And in former days, the way that they would do this on the coastline would be to build hardscape. They would build armored beaches with things like seawalls. Seawalls were great at protecting the upland and preserving the buildings, but ultimately they proved very quick in diminishing the property of the beach to restore itself. So the beaches themselves get washed out pretty quickly. So we have moved away from that method to this renourishment method. Ultimately, again, knowing that this is futile. The sea is going to win. And to illustrate that, I've got another type of rock. This is actually a fossil. You can see it. It's a fossil vertebrae of a large animal that I found about 40 years ago digging footers for a house in Ocala. Ocala is in the middle of the state, 50 miles from either coast. This site sits 100 feet above current sea level in a little creek area surrounded by higher hills. So you would think maybe this was a mastodon or something like that. But in fact, it's a vertebrae from a large marine mammal, either a dugong, prehistoric manatee, or some form of prehistoric whale. And to find it that high and that far inland, you realize that at one time that the hills of Ocala, the rolling hills of Ocala, were once pretty much the equivalent of the Florida Keys. At some point, it's likely that they will be again, in eons and eons. So we go through a great deal of effort currently to try to fight beach erosion, knowing that ultimately the effort's going to be futile, but still going through it. And we do need to find opportunities, even though the ocean's always going to win, to come up with more creative solutions that will be economical and effective and maintain a balance between private investment and natural environment.